So good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us here today. As Jane said, my name is Elsa Hardy, and I'm a senior at Wesleyan University. The title of my presentation is Cultures of Power, Harlem Children's Zone, and Poverty Intervention Efforts. So to give you a better idea of my research problem, I am studying contemporary and historical educational institutions that have served poor Black communities because I want to learn more about how these institutions have been received by different audiences, and how they address culture as a factor in poverty and school success. In so doing, I hope to help my reader understand how efforts to intervene in poor Black communities are currently being and have historically been conceptualized. Contemporary discussions about racialized inequality and poverty increasingly center around two opposing perspectives, one that offers structural explanations and solutions for these enduring problems, and another that offers cultural explanations and solutions. This project is concerned primarily with cultural explanations and how educational institutions engage with culture as a factor. Cultural explanations for poverty and academic achievement began to arise in the 1950s as an alternative to biological and genetic explanations. In the 1950s, we see the emergence of expressions such as culturally deprived, culturally deficient, and culturally disadvantaged. These explanations targeted environmental factors relating to home life. For example, the number of people living in a household, the family dynamic, is there an absent father, is it a single-headed household, income and education of parents, etc. Home life, according to these explanations, failed to impart the proper values, stimulation, and social experiences that children needed in order to be successful in school. These terms became synonymous with poor and minority. Institutions began to organize around the idea that their poor Black students were culturally deprived, and these pathologies about lower-class Blacks provided a conceptual framework for educational institutions at this time. In the 1970s, there was significant backlash in both scholarly and public spheres about these terms. We have since seen the emergence of terms such as culturally different, disadvantaged, at-risk, and inner city, which are often used to describe poor minority students. In their article From Culturally Deprived to At-Risk, Martinez and Rory state that these new expressions can be seen as simply a somewhat more polite way of denoting the controversial ideas of the past. Yet, they have not become the object of controversy in the way that earlier terms had during the 60s and 70s. Educational institutions organized around the idea of nourishing the culturally deprived Black child were criticized for making the disadvantaged children as much as possible like middle-class children. Many scholars, educators, and parents saw them as new forms of ethnic and racial prejudice, and criticized institutions organized around the idea of cultural deprivation for their implicit hierarchies of values. In other words, institutions operated under the assumption that the cultural backgrounds of poor Black students were inferior. This brings me to Baby College, an institution on which this project will focus. Baby College is a part of the Harlem Children's Zone, which is the network of social and educational programs in central Harlem, founded by Jeffrey Canada in the 90s. Baby College is not a college for babies, as its name suggests, but rather an institute that offers free parenting workshops in 9-week cycles to poor, mostly Black mothers and fathers of children ages 0 to 3. Paul Tough is a writer whose book, Whatever It Takes, is the most comprehensive and in-depth examination of Harlem Children's Zone that has been conducted to date. A chapter of this book is devoted to talking specifically about Baby College. An interview with Tough describes, Jeffrey Canada wants parents to rethink how to raise their kids, to show them what middle-class parents are doing, to give up 9 Saturday mornings to take classes on how to be a better parent. He is essentially telling poor parents that there's a better way to raise their kids, and we're going to tell you how. Oddly, given public backlash to the idea of cultural deprivation and to the institutions that sought to teach poor families to act like middle-class families in the 60s and 70s, it is difficult to find a critical word uttered about Harlem Children's Zone. So I want to know why this is, how Baby College institutional agents or instructors understand and describe the work that they are doing. I want to know what Baby College feels like, how parents who participate in baby college feel about their experiences there, and whether or not these reactions are consistent with public discourse surrounding Harlem Children's Zone. So to talk a little bit about the roadblocks, baby college won't let me in. This has been an unexpected setback for me, as I expected to walk in and start observing and volunteering from day one of this program. I've been met with a lot of oppositions in my attempts to observe. After going through a bureaucratic maze trying to get in touch with somebody who could give me permission, I was told that I had to contact a specific office that deals with research and inquiry about Harlem Children's Zone programs. This office apparently arranges for 3-hour and 3-day visits in exchange for $2,000 or $6,400 respectively. Finally, I was put in touch with the baby college director, who said that the program could not accommodate a school project. I've been following up with her persistently and recently arranged to have a half-hour interview, which is better than nothing, but this is all to say that it has not been easy getting access to this institution to do the observation that I would really love to be able to do in order to complete this project. This is disappointing, as I was really hoping to have the opportunity to experience firsthand what baby college feels like. Does it feel like instructors are imposing certain beliefs and practices on parents, or does it feel more like a conversation or a mutual learning experience? However, this setback has also raised some interesting questions that I had not previously thought about. For example, why are the doors of a supposedly public institution so firmly locked to certain people? What is the institutional purpose of this closed-offness? Who made this rule? Does it exist for political reasons? Does it exist for reasons of confidentiality, etc.? I'm still trying to answer my initial questions using alternative methods. I obviously cannot go through the institution, but I'm talking to community members and other people who have interacted with Harlem Children's Zone and Baby College in various ways. The key ideas that will frame my analysis of Baby College are the idea of cultural capital, which is a term coined by Pierre Bourdieu, and it refers to the resources that eventually can yield students social and professional success. Cultural capital is more neutral than the theory of cultural deprivation, in that in most contexts it does not imply a value judgment. The idea of dominant versus non-dominant culture, which Prudence Carter writes a lot about. According to Carter, dominant culture is the cultural capital of high-status group members, or the cultural capital of the middle and upper middle classes, whereas non-dominant culture is the cultural capital of low-status group members, or the cultural capital of lower and working classes. The idea of culture of power, which is the idea that my title makes reference to, and educationalist Lisa Delpit writes a lot about the culture of power and coined this term. Culture of power is another way of saying dominant culture. And I'm curious how this theory applies to baby college and how does it challenge how we conceptualize institutions that target culture. Finally, the idea of multicultural navigators, which is another term that Prudence Carter writes about. And a multicultural navigator is an individual who demonstrates how to possess both dominant and non-dominant cultural capital. So I'm curious what a navigator's responsibility is and how he or she avoids re-entrenching hierarchies of dominance and how he or she ensures that the navigation goes both ways. In other words, how does a multicultural navigator demonstrate how to be well-versed in this culture of power while maintaining social and cultural origins? In later stages of this project, because this project is going to evolve into my senior thesis, I will consider these questions and ideas in reference to other institutions that focus primarily on cultural intervention. I hope to take a deeper look at Tuskegee Institute, which was founded by Booker T. Washington in 1881, the Dunbar School, which is an elementary school in Philadelphia. I'm particularly interested in the Dunbar School between the years of 1958 and 1963, when Marcus Foster, who later became the superintendent of the Oakland School District, was principal. The Ounce Prevention Fund, which is an early childhood program similar to Baby College that was founded in 1982 in Chicago, and the Northside Child Development Center, which was founded by Kenneth and Mamie Clark in 1946, and it also is located in Harlem. I will explore why some of these institutions have been more controversial or well-received than others, despite their common modes of intervention. In conclusion, in extending theories about cultural capital to baby college and putting this lauded institution into conversation with others, I hope to offer a new perspective on baby college and contribute to the debate about cultural intervention in impoverished Black communities. Thank you.